Listen carefully, my friend.
There are people who move through the chaos of this life as if almost nothing can touch them. They are looked down on, but they do not rush to react. They are under pressure, but they do not break. They lose many things, but they do not lose themselves.
What is worth noticing is this: their life is not easier than yours. They have bad days too. Things go wrong for them too. They also get hurt, disappointed, and exhausted. But there is one difference. No matter what happens, they still keep their calm, they still stay positive, and they still live joyfully. In their own way. And what about you? A late reply to a message can make you think for hours. One slightly blunt sentence can make you start doubting yourself. One cold glance is enough for your mind to begin building all kinds of stories. On the outside, maybe nothing that serious has happened. But on the inside, you have already been pulled very far away, carrying heaviness and anxiety with you for the rest of the day. Maybe you think your problem is stress, too much work, other people not understanding you. Life constantly pushing you into pressure. But perhaps the truth goes much deeper than what you have always believed. The problem is not only what happens outside. The problem is that your mind has not yet been trained to stand firm before it. And when the mind has not been trained, anything can control you. A message, a glance, a careless sentence, a day that does not go your way. That alone is enough to take away the calm you thought you had. That is why so many people live with the feeling that circumstances are always leading them, even while they believe they are in control of their own life. In this video, I will take you through 10 practical Stoic lessons inspired by Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. Principles that have been tested for thousands of years, not so you become emotionless, but so you become calmer under pressure, less manipulated by emotion, and gradually become the kind of person chaos cannot easily touch. Let's begin. Lesson 1. 3 seconds before you lose yourself. That is the important moment. Because right after that first sign, the mind usually attaches meaning very quickly. A comment becomes disrespect, a cold tone becomes an attack. And the moment you believe that first layer of meaning, your reaction has a reason to come out. Epictetus once taught that people are not disturbed by events themselves, but by their judgments about those events. A message is only a few lines of text. A voice is only sound. But when the mind calls it disrespect, you immediately want to defend yourself. The Stoic does not begin by controlling other people. They return to the only part that still belongs to them: judgment, the pause, and the way they respond. That is the inner steering wheel. And 3 seconds is how you take it back. Before you respond, there is always a very small space. So small that most people do not even realize it exists. Someone says something that makes you heat up, and you still have 1 beat. A message irritates you, and you still have 1 second. Emotion begins to rise, but you do not have to act yet. This is the point many people miss. They think that when emotion appears, a reaction must happen. They think getting heated means they have to speak, feeling irritated means they have to send. Having their ego touched means they have to strike back. And just like that, they hand the steering wheel to emotion. 3 seconds is how you take the steering wheel back. Call it the 3-second rule. 3 seconds before reacting. Not so the emotion disappears. Not so you can win the argument. And not so you can swallow everything and suffer in silence. 3 seconds does only one thing. It interrupts the old reaction pattern. It places a pause between what happens and the person you are about to become when you respond. And that pause matters more than you think. Because without it, you live like a dry leaf in the wind. Whoever blows harder decides where you go. One sentence pulls you away. One look pulls you away. One message pulls you away. But when you can create 3 seconds, you are no longer the leaf. You begin to become the one with hands on the wheel. The road outside may still be rough. Other people may still drive recklessly. A sentence may still crash into your ego. But this time, you do not take your hands off the inner steering wheel. So how do you apply it? Very simply. When your jaw tightens, when your chest gets hot, when your finger wants to hit send, pause for 3 seconds. Breathe out once. Then ask, am I reacting to the truth or to the feeling of being disrespected? That is all. No need for long philosophy. No need to force yourself to be calm. Just do not let the hottest version of you make decisions for your whole self. If you need to speak, you still speak. If you need to set a boundary, you still set it. If you need to leave, you still leave. But this time, it is a choice, not a reflex. That is the difference between someone who gets pulled along and the driver. The driver is not someone without emotion. It is someone who does not let emotion decide for them. They do not need to react immediately to prove they are strong. They do not need to hurt someone back just to feel worthy. They can speak, stay silent, or walk away. But whatever they choose, they still keep hold of themselves. That is the feeling of winning without needing to go to war. But the first reaction is only the outer layer. Even when you say nothing, send nothing, and do not explode, the mind can still pull you away from the inside. It only needs you to believe the first story it tells. And that is the next trap. Lesson 2. The lie your mind tells. You've learned how to pause for 3 seconds before reacting. But pausing is only the first step. Inside that pause, the mind usually does one thing very quickly. It tells a story. And this is what most people do not realize. You are not hurt only because of what happened. You are hurt because of the meaning your mind attaches to what happened. A message left unanswered for an hour is only a message left unanswered. But the mind can turn it into being ignored. A short reply is only a short reply, but the mind can turn it into coldness. A message from your boss saying, "Come see me when you have a minute," is only a message. But before you even walk into the room, your mind has already turned it into a big problem. This is where many people lose control. Not because the event is too big, but because the story arrives too fast. Epictetus once taught that people are not disturbed by events themselves, but by their judgments about those events. Put more simply, the event is not always what hurts you. The way you interpret the event is what pushes emotion higher. Think of the mind like a pair of glasses. When the lenses are clear, you see things more clearly. But when the lenses are tinted by fear, everything changes color. Silence looks like rejection. A cold voice looks like disrespect. Feedback looks like an attack. The problem is not that the whole world is against you. The problem is that sometimes you are looking at the world through the wrong colored lenses. So the principle of this lesson is very simple. Do not obey the first story. Before you believe the first emotion, separate 2 things: the event and the story. The event is what a camera could record. The story is what the mind adds afterward. They have not replied. That is the event. They do not care about me anymore. That is the story. Your coworker did not say hello. That is the event. They hate me. That is the story. Your boss calls you into the room. That is the event. I am about to get in trouble. That is the story. One thing is reality. One thing is a script. One thing happened. One thing was added. From today on, when a negative emotion rises, ask 2 questions. What actually happened? And what story am I adding to it? That is all. No need to force yourself to think positively. No need to pretend everything is fine. Just see clearly what is data and what is the part your mind has added. Because a strong mind is not a mind that never tells stories. Every mind tells stories. But the untrained person believes the first story. The disciplined person examines it before obeying it. When you practice this, you do not become cold. You become clearer. You still have thoughts, you still have emotions, but they no longer pull you away just because they arrived first. You no longer let a slow reply ruin your whole morning. You no longer let a short sentence decide your worth. You no longer let ambiguity control your mood. That is freedom. Not because the world has become gentler, but because you no longer believe every story your mind tells. But there is a deeper trap. Sometimes you already know it is only a story. You already know it may not be true, but the mind still returns to it. Once, then one more time, until the story is no longer just a thought. It becomes a room you cannot escape. Lesson 3. The prison without doors. Do not live inside what has not happened. The previous lesson showed you one simple thing. The mind can turn a small event into a big story. But if that story does not stop, it will do the next thing. It repeats, then repeats, then repeats, until you are no longer just thinking about the problem. You begin living inside it. It is 2 a.m. Your body is tired, your eyes are heavy, but your mind will not stop. You replay the conversation that already happened. Imagine the conversation that never happened. Prepare answers for questions no one has asked. And fight with people who are not even in the room. There is no meeting happening. No one is questioning you. No disaster is taking place right now. But your body still pays the price. Your heart beats faster. Your stomach tightens. Your breathing becomes shallow. Sleep disappears. This is the trap of overthinking. It makes you believe you are preparing, when in reality, you are putting yourself on trial before anything has even happened. See it as a courtroom opening at 2 a.m. There is no real judge, no new evidence. The other person is not in the room. But the mind still calls witnesses, reconstructs every sentence, replays every look, and makes you live as if the verdict has already been delivered. That is why overthinking is dangerous. Not because you are thinking, but because you are believing a trial that has never taken place in real life. Overthinking is not deep thinking. It is imagination that has lost control. Deep thinking leads you to something that needs to be done. Overthinking leads you into another loop. Deep thinking makes you clearer. Overthinking makes you more exhausted. Deep thinking ends with action. Overthinking ends with depletion. The Stoics did not teach you to predict the entire future. They taught you to return to what is truly in your hands. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to come back to the present, to the task in front of him.
instead of letting the mind be dragged away by things that have not happened.
And overthinking does the opposite. It pulls you into tomorrow, into next year, into a conversation that has not happened, into a failure that is not real, into a version of life you have not even lived. The farther you move away from the present, the more you lose the power to act. Because you cannot fix a conversation that has not happened. You cannot control the tomorrow that has not arrived. And you cannot solve your entire life at 2 a.m. You can only return to the place where you still have a choice. Right now. So the next time your mind starts pulling you away, especially at night, ask one question. Is this actually happening right now? Not, could it happen? Because almost anything could happen. Not, am I afraid of it? Because fear can always find evidence. But, is it happening right now? If the answer is no, return to 3 simple things. Your breath, the room you are in, and one small action you can take when morning comes. You do not need to solve your whole life in the dark. You do not need to win every argument in your head. You do not need to answer a future that has not arrived. Just return to the place where you still have the power to act. The present. That is mental strength. Not never worrying, but knowing when worry has moved beyond reality. Not erasing every thought, but refusing to let a chain of what-ifs become the place you live. Thoughts still come, emotions still rise, but they no longer hold the steering wheel. When you practice this, you are no longer someone dragged around by the mind all night. You become someone who knows how to return. Someone who can tell the difference between preparation and self-torment. Someone who hears fear, but does not move in and live inside it. And when you leave the courtroom in your head, you will notice your energy slowly becoming steady again and your mood beginning to improve. However, there are still smaller, more ordinary things quietly draining you day after day. Lesson 4. The silent leak. Let's be honest. Your biggest problem is not always a lack of time. Often, it is a lack of controlled energy. You wake up, pick up your phone, and only plan to look for a few minutes. One notification pulls you in. One comment irritates you. One piece of news makes your mind heavier. Then an hour passes. The day has barely begun, and already there is noise inside you. At work, everything keeps leaking. A short email stays on your mind. A coworker tells you drama that has nothing to do with you. One small sentence gets stuck in your head. None of it is big enough to be called a crisis. But by the end of the day, you are exhausted without understanding where your energy went. That is the silent leak. Not one major wound, but hundreds of tiny cuts. And the dangerous thing is that you usually call it normal. Everyone scrolls a little. Everyone listens to a bit of drama. Everyone gets annoyed by a stupid comment. But an uncontrolled life does not always begin with one big decision. It often begins when you give too many small things permission to enter you. One notification changes your mood. One stranger pulls you into an argument. One algorithm decides what you think about all morning. One unrelated story takes up space in your head all day. This is not only a time problem. This is a sovereignty problem. Your mind is like a room. If the door is always open, anything can walk in. Noise walks in, drama walks in, comparison walks in, anger walks in. And after a while, the problem is not only that the room becomes full, the air inside changes too. Marcus Aurelius once said that the mind takes the color of what it frequently thinks about. Put more simply,
What you put into your mind every day gradually becomes part of who you are.
If all day you put in arguments, comparison, bad news, judgment, and noise, do not be surprised when there is no quiet left inside you. That is not an accident.
That is the result of what you have stayed exposed to for too long.
You talk to someone who only complains, and 10 minutes later you feel heavier. You scroll for 30 minutes, and your focus disappears. You argue with someone who does not want to understand, and your whole day gets pulled off course. That is not a small thing. That is energy being taken, little by little. And here is what you need to face directly. You think you are only watching, but in reality, your mind is being used. By noise, by drama, by the algorithm, by battles that do not belong to you. Because mastering the mind is not only about controlling your reaction when you are provoked, it is also about controlling what you allow to enter you every day. Thoughts still appear, emotions still rise. The world is still noisy. But if you do not choose where to place your energy, the world will choose for you. So from today on, before stepping into anything, ask one question. Is this worthy of my energy? Before replying to a provoking comment, ask that question. Before opening social media just because you feel empty, ask that question. Before continuing to listen to a negative story you know will make your mind heavier, ask that question. Before trying to prove you are right to someone who does not want to understand, ask that question. Is this worthy of my energy? If the answer is no, do not participate. No need to explain. No need to announce it. No need to prove you have matured. Just leave it. That is not avoidance. That is self-command. A person who has not trained the mind reacts to everything that touches them. A person training the mind understands that not everything deserves to touch them. This is a very quiet strength. Not the strength of someone who wins every argument, but the strength of someone who no longer needs to enter every argument. You are not silent because you are afraid. You are silent because you have chosen where your energy belongs. When you practice this, you begin to own your energy again. Your mind is no longer a room with an open door for anyone to walk in. Not every noise deserves your reaction. Not every battle belongs to you. Not everything that can pull your attention deserves the best part of you. You become someone with sovereignty over your inner world. Someone who knows how to save energy for what is worthy. Someone who can walk past the noise without needing to prove anything to anyone. But the noise outside is still not the most dangerous leak. There is something quieter, cleaner, more reasonable. It does not enter like drama. It enters like something you believe you deserve to receive. And because of that, you do not suspect it. Until reality does not give it to you, and you collapse far more than you thought you would. Lesson 5. The Invisible Killer. Do not let expectation kill your peace. Remember the last time you were truly disappointed. Your partner forgot an important day. Your boss did not recognize your effort. A friend did not text back the way you hoped. A plan you were certain would work suddenly fell apart. And immediately, something inside you felt as if you had been treated unfairly. But look more closely. Often what hurts you is not only what happened. What hurts you is that it did not happen the way you believed it should happen. The invisible killer. Expectation. It does not enter like an enemy. It enters like something very reasonable. A partner should remember. A good boss should recognize you.
Real friends should understand. A fair life should reward effort. At first, all of that sounds right. But here is the trap. Every should you place on life is a string tying your piece to something you do not control. You are not only sad because they forgot. You hurt because they should have remembered. You are not only disappointed because your boss stayed silent. You hurt because your effort should have been seen. You are not only angry because the plan changed. You hurt because life should have followed the path you had drawn. Expectation is like an invisible contract. You write it in your head. You attach someone else's name to it. You believe they have to follow the terms. But the problem is, no one signed that contract. Not your partner. Not your boss. Not your friends. Not life. And when reality does not follow the contract that only you wrote, you call it betrayal. This is where many people lose their peace. Not because reality is too cruel, but because the gap between what is and what they want it to be is too wide. That gap is where disappointment is born. The Stoics understood this very well. Epictetus said not to try to force things to happen exactly as you want. Learn to meet things as they are happening. Not so you become passive. Not so you accept being treated badly. Not so you lower your standards. But so you stop handing your peace to things that are not in your hands. You are allowed to want to be loved. You are allowed to want recognition. You are allowed to have standards. You are allowed to make plans. But desire and blind expectation are not the same. Desire gives you direction. Blind expectation turns that direction into a chain. Desire says, I will do my best. Expectation says, life must respond exactly the way I want. And when life does not, you break. Think of a river. A river does not demand that the path be straight. It does not stop to get angry at every rock. It does not call each bend unfair. It simply does what it can do, bends around, keeps flowing, finds a way. Human beings suffer more than the river because they enter life with a road already drawn in their mind. And when life places a rock in the middle of that road, they do not adapt. They collapse. That is why every morning before stepping into the world, remind yourself of 3 things. Today, things may not go my way. Other people may not behave the way I hope. But I can still control how I respond. That is not pessimism. That is mental armor. You do not wear armor because you want to be attacked. You wear it because you understand the world is not obligated to be gentle with your expectations. And when disappointment appears, ask one question. Am I hurting because of what happened, or because of what I thought should have happened? This question does not make the emotion disappear, but it creates distance. And inside that distance, you take back control. You can still love, but without turning another person into the guardian of your peace. You can still try, but without letting your boss's silence decide your worth. You can still make plans, but without collapsing just because life turns in a different direction. This is mind control. Not to stop wanting, but to stop letting wanting hold the steering wheel. Thoughts still come. Emotions still rise. Disappointment can still hurt. But it is no longer allowed to break you, just because life did not follow the script in your head. And here is the line to remember. Expectation is the remote control you place in life's hand. Take it back. Not by living more coldly, but by living with more self-command. When you practice this, you become steadier. Not because life becomes more predictable, but because you no longer need life to unfold perfectly in order to keep your peace. You become someone who knows how to desire without clinging, to make effort without demanding guarantees, to receive reality without breaking simply because it is different from what you imagine. But when expectation is broken, one thing often rises right after it. Hotter than disappointment, faster than reason. And if you do not know how to use it, it will make you say things you cannot take back. Lesson 6. The weapon inside anger. Think about the last time you were truly angry. Your chest heated up, your jaw tightened. Your hand was already on the screen, ready to type something heavy. A part of you wanted the other person to hurt, the way you were hurting. And in that moment, most people see only two choices: explode or suppress. When you explode, the words come out, the message gets sent, and everything goes too far. When the anger passes, you look back and wonder why you became that person. When you suppress it, everything may look fine on the outside. You say it is okay. You smile a little. You swallow it down. But inside, it is still burning. It does not disappear. It only changes form into coldness, bitterness, sleeplessness, or another explosion aimed at someone who did not deserve to receive it. Those two paths look very different. But in truth, they share the same problem. Anger is still controlling you. One path lets it rush outward. The other locks it inside. But in both cases, you are still not truly in command. This is what needs to be faced directly. Anger is not the enemy. It is fire. Uncontrolled, fire burns down a house. But controlled, fire forges steel, cooks food, and lights the way in the dark. The same flame. Two completely different outcomes. Anger is the same. If you let it hold your mouth, it will say things you cannot take back. If you let it hold your hand, it will send messages you regret. If you let it hold your decisions, it will make you pay after it has already left. But if you know how to hold it properly, anger can show you something important. A boundary has been crossed. A truth needs to be spoken clearly. A decision has been delayed for too long, or a part of you needs to be trained stronger. The Stoics did not teach you to become emotionless. They taught you not to become a slave to emotion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the obstacle can become the way if we know how to use it correctly. Anger is the same. It can either destroy you or point to where you need to grow. But only if you do not let it speak for you. This is the principle of this lesson. You do not need to erase anger. You only need to stop letting it choose your reaction for you. When anger rises, do not try to analyze everything deeply. Do not try to prove who is right and who is wrong while your blood is still hot. In that moment, you only need one short line. Not spoken, not sent, not decided. Do not speak the sentence that hurts someone. Do not send the message you will regret. Do not make a decision while anger is still holding the wheel. Step away from the screen if you need to. Leave the room if you need to. Walk. Breathe. Write it down, but do not send it. Give the body enough time for the flame to lower. Because while the fire is still high, everything you say can become a weapon. Then, when you are clearer, ask, what will I use this energy for? Not, how do I make them hurt back? Not, how do I win right now? If anger shows that a boundary has been crossed, set the boundary. If it shows that a conversation needs to happen, speak when you are calm. If it shows that you are stuck somewhere that no longer fits, use it to make a change. If it is only your ego being touched,
Use it to train yourself.
Turn anger into action.
Turn disappointment into focus. Turn pain into discipline.
Do not waste emotional energy on a reaction you will have to clean up afterward. There are times when the right action is to leave the room. There are times when it is to stay silent before answering. There are times when it is to say very calmly, "I need time before I respond to this." And there are times when it is to pour that energy into the gym, into your work, into a better decision, into becoming someone you can respect more. That is not weakness. That is disciplined strength. Because the strong person is not the one who never gets angry. The strong person is the one who does not let anger turn them into someone they have to regret. Every time you do this, even in one small moment, you are retraining your mind to understand that emotion can rise without becoming a command. You are not that anger. You are the one seeing it, holding it, directing it. Anger is energy, but its direction is your responsibility. When you understand this, you do not become cold. You become steadier. You can still feel the fire inside, but you do not let it burn your words, your relationships, your decisions, and your future. But there is another string, more subtle than anger. It does not make you explode. It makes you bend yourself out of shape. Lesson 7. The puppet string. Do not live by other people's eyes. Be honest for a moment. How many things do you do because you truly believe they are right? And how many do you do just to be liked, praised, or seen? You post something on social media. 10 minutes later, you open it again, then again. Not because the post has changed, but because you are waiting for a sign that tells you whether you have been approved. You say something in a meeting. No one reacts much. And for the rest of the afternoon, your voice becomes a little smaller. You do something good. No one thanks you. And suddenly that good thing is no longer enough for you. This is the puppet string. It does not pull you with violence. It pulls you with approval. One like, one compliment, one look, one silence. One person not responding the way you hoped. That is all. And something inside you changes color. Wanting approval is normal. But needing approval in order to feel valuable, that is the trap. Because at that point, someone else is holding the string. They praise you and you are pulled up. They criticize you and you are pulled down. They stay silent and you stand still, waiting for the next signal. And little by little you stop living from yourself. You perform. You soften what you truly think. You agree to things you do not want. You laugh to avoid making others uncomfortable. You over-explain so you will not be misunderstood. You edit yourself to fit the room. Small thing after small thing. But over time, you lose track of yourself. That is the real cost of approval. It is not that you lose a like. It is not that you lose a compliment. You lose the right to live from your own center. You begin to see yourself through other people's eyes. And the person who lives by other people's eyes will always be controlled by other people's eyes. The Stoics understood this very well. Epictetus once said that if you want to make progress, you must be willing to be seen as foolish or disliked by others. Not because you want to fight the world, but because you cannot build a strong mind if every step you take needs permission from the crowd. Look at a tree. It does not stop growing just because no one claps. It does not change direction every day because someone dislikes its shape. It deepens its roots, then grows from its nature. Human beings are the same. If your roots are approval, you will shake every time someone stays silent. But if your roots are values, standards, and self-respect, you can stand firm even when no one is watching. This is the turning point. The old self asks, "Do people like me?" The new self asks, "Am I living in alignment with my values?" One question turns you into a puppet. The other cuts the string. So from today on, before you post, speak, agree, explain, or try to please someone, ask one question. Am I doing this because of my values or because I need approval? If the answer is because of your values, do it. Do it even if no one claps. Speak even if not everyone likes it. Help even if no one praises you. Stay silent even when you could impress them. But if the answer is because you are asking for approval, pause for one beat. Not to become cold, but to take back your freedom. Controlling the mind does not mean you need no one. It does not mean you do not care about feedback. It only means other people's reactions no longer get to sit in the driver's seat. Thoughts still appear. Emotions still rise. You may still want to be liked, but that desire no longer controls you. This is quiet strength. Not making other people see that you are strong, but no longer needing them to confirm that you are strong. Not living to impress, but living from an inner standard. You can still listen, but you do not turn feedback into identity. You can still love, but you do not sell your truth to buy acceptance. You can still stand in a crowd, but you do not need the crowd to hold your spine for you. And here is the line to remember. The person who needs approval will always be controlled by the person who can withdraw it. When you understand this, you do not become arrogant. You become freer. You do not rise in value when praised. You do not lose value when criticized. You do not disappear when no one sees you. And when you are no longer busy seeing yourself through other people's eyes, a deeper question will appear. If there are no likes, no applause, no one to impress, no role to put on, who truly you are when you are alone. Lesson 8. Learn to sit with yourself. Be honest. When was the last time you sat alone with no phone, no music, no video, no podcast, no one to text? Just you. And your mind. Most people cannot do it. The moment the room becomes quiet, their hand reaches for the phone. With nothing to listen to, they turn something on. With no one to talk to, they pull down the screen, searching for new noise. Not because they truly need more information, but because silence makes them uncomfortable. But silence is not the problem. What appears in the silence is the problem. An old worry, a feeling of loneliness, a truth you have been avoiding, a kind of exhaustion you have covered with busyness for too long. You think you are resting, but often you are only hiding. And the longer you hide from something, the more control it has over you. The Stoics did not run from the mind. They observed it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day, not to impress anyone, but to see clearly what was happening inside him. Because if you cannot sit still with yourself, it will be very hard to control yourself. Imagine a lake. When the surface is stirred up, you cannot see anything clearly. Everything is distorted. Everything trembles. But when the lake becomes still, it begins to reflect clearly. Your mind is the same. When you are constantly stimulated, thought becomes cloudy.
Emotion becomes noisy. You feel anxious, so you pick up your phone. You feel empty, so you turn on a video. You feel tense, so you search for something to forget. For a few minutes, you feel better. But what is inside is still there. Because you have not truly looked at it. You have only covered it with noise. This is why you need stillness. Not to become perfect. Not to erase every thought. But to see yourself more clearly. Thoughts still come. Emotions still rise. But you no longer run the moment they appear. So start small. 10 minutes a day. No phone. No music. No video. No opening another tab. Just sit still. Or walk alone. Do not try to fix everything. Do not try to analyze your whole life. Just observe. When a thought comes, see it. When an emotion rises, recognize it. When restlessness appears, stay a little longer. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. You will want to pick up your phone. You will realize your mind is louder than you thought. But that is not failure. That is the first time you are hearing what you have avoided for too long. And every time you stay, you are teaching your mind something new. Silence is not dangerous. Emotion is not something you have to run from. Being alone does not mean being abandoned. This is not doing nothing. This is mental training. Because the person who cannot sit still with themselves will always depend on something that helps them escape themselves. When you understand this, you do not need to leave the world. You only need to stop using the world to escape yourself. And once you can stay with yourself, the next step is learning to see life from a higher level. Because many pains are not as large as they seem. You are simply standing too close to them. Lesson 9. The view from the mountain. Look at the thing that is making you tense right now. Maybe it is an unanswered message, a comment from your boss, a meeting tomorrow, a small mistake you keep replaying in your head. Now ask yourself, will this still matter 1 year from now? 5 years from now, will you still remember it clearly? At the end of your life, will it still be worth the peace you are losing today? Very often, the answer is no. But right now, it still looks very big. As if your whole life is sitting inside one sentence, one look, one meeting, one bad day. This is what you need to see clearly. The problem is not always big. Sometimes, you are simply looking at it too closely. It is like placing your eye right next to a small object. The object itself is not that large, but because it is so close, it covers your entire field of vision. One criticism begins to look like failure. One silence begins to look like abandonment. One broken plan begins to look like your whole future is falling apart. Not because everything is truly that big, but because it is standing too close to your mind. That is why many people become exhausted, not because their lives are full of major disasters, but because their minds treat everything as if it matters equally. Something that was meant to be only one part of the day becomes the whole day. One sentence that was meant to be only a piece of data becomes a verdict on your worth. That is when you lose perspective. Not because you lose reason completely, but because you lose distance. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to look at life from a wider angle. People, reputation, pressure, loss, conflict, all of it becomes smaller when placed inside the larger picture. Not so you look down on life, but so one small piece of life does not swallow you whole. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a busy street. Traffic, horns, people, pressure, movement. Everything feels large, urgent, close, and easy to suffocate inside. But if you look at that same city from above, everything changes. The roads appear, the buildings become smaller, the crowds become moving dots. The noise no longer swallows you. The city has not changed. Only your viewing position has changed. That is the view from the mountain. The problem does not disappear, but it no longer covers the whole sky. It may still matter, but it is not everything. It may still need to be handled, but it does not deserve to take all of your peace. Looking wider does not make the problem meaningless. It only makes the problem the right size for you to handle. So the next time a small thing begins to occupy your whole mind, ask, 1 year from now, will this still be worth losing sleep over? In the larger picture of my life, where does this really belong? Not to deny the emotion, not to pretend it does not hurt, but to place it back into its proper size. An unanswered message is not allowed to define your worth. One criticism is not allowed to become your entire identity. One bad day is not allowed to rewrite the story of your life. That is mind control. Not erasing emotion completely, but refusing to let a temporary emotion expand into the whole truth. Lesson 10. The untouchable one. Become the observer, not the reactor. This is the final step. After everything you have learned, there is one shift that changes everything. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the one observing them. Thoughts appear, emotions rise. Anger, anxiety, fear, pressure, sadness. And most people immediately merge with them. Anger appears, and they become the anger. Fear appears, and they become the fear. Stress appears, and they let it decide the whole day. That is where they lose control. Not because they have emotions, but because they confuse what is passing through them with who they are. When you identify with emotion, emotion begins to use you. Anger uses your mouth. Fear uses your choices. Stress uses your entire day. But when you observe it, distance appears. And inside that distance, you get your power back. Imagine you are sitting by the side of the road watching cars pass by. Each car is a thought. Each car is an emotion. Some move fast, some are loud, some make you flinch. But you do not need to jump into every car that passes. You only need to watch it go by. The mind is the same. An anger passes through, and you do not need to climb into it. A fear passes through, and you do not need to let it carry you through the whole day. A dark thought appears, and you do not need to turn it into the truth about yourself. Just name it. Anger is here. Fear is appearing. Stress is rising. One short sentence, but it changes your position. You are no longer sitting inside the car of emotion. You are standing by the road and watching it pass. That is distance. And distance creates choice. The Stoics did not teach people to become stone. They taught people to feel, without being ruled by feeling. Anger may appear, but it does not get to become an order. Fear may walk in, but it does not get to choose the path. Pressure may reach you, but it does not get to hold the steering wheel. This is not suppression. Suppression is pretending nothing is happening. Observation is looking directly at what is happening, without handing it the wheel. Remember 3 steps. Name it, Create distance. Choose your response. When a strong emotion appears, do not react immediately. Do not believe it immediately. Do not turn it immediately into who you are. Just name it. Then breathe out once and ask, what action now will keep me aligned with the person I want to become? This is mind control. Not stopping thought, not killing emotion, not becoming cold, but no longer letting thoughts, emotions, and reactions drive your life. Thoughts still appear, emotions still rise, but they no longer have the right to decide who you are. Think of the sky. Clouds come and go, storms rise and pass. But the sky does not become the cloud. It does not become the storm. Your mind is the same. Thoughts are clouds. Emotions are storms. Your awareness is the sky. And the sky is still wider than everything passing through it. That is the untouchable one. Not someone who never hurts, never gets angry, never feels afraid. But someone who no longer becomes everything that appears inside them. You began this video as someone being pulled around by life. But now, you have seen a different path through the 10 lessons above. This is not just information. It is transformation if you practice it. Because knowing without doing changes nothing. You can return to the old reflexes. Get heated, then speak. Feel anxious, then believe it. Get hurt, then react. Feel insecure, then search for approval. Or you can begin doing something different. Just one moment today. When emotion rises, do not let it take the wheel right away. Pause. Name it correctly. Create a small distance. Then choose your response as the person you want to become. One time like that is enough to begin. Then one more time. In each small moment, you take back control. No one needs to see it. No one needs to applaud. But inside, you know you are no longer being pulled around the way you were before. The world will still be noisy. People will still disappoint you. Pressure will still come. But you no longer have to lose yourself every time it appears. And when you practice this long enough, you become calmer, stronger, harder to shake. You become the kind of person chaos can still touch, but can no longer easily take over. Keep discipline. Keep awareness. Keep control.